Well, good pre-happy Valentine's Day greetings to you all. Mike Ackerman here from Mayo Clinic. I'm director of the Winland Smith Rice Genetic Heart Rhythm Clinic and the Winland Smith Rice Sudden Death Genomics Laboratory. But as we have on almost 2 years worth of Fridays, I come to you today on behalf of the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Foundation, the SADS Foundation, and on behalf of its president and CEO, Alice Laura. We welcome you back for SADS program number 84 that we've been together, and I'm looking forward to seeing those of you who are here and joining us, those in the group and those who you'll share. We are in the midst of February Heart Month, and last week we were together for Wear Red Day, and I did. And today I'm wearing the same red sweater because I only have one red sweater, and it's for the pre-Valentine's Day to wish you all a happy Valentine's. You mean a lot to me. You mean a lot to us at the SADS Foundation. Before I introduce our program, which is really focused on awareness about SADS warning signs and a proactive prevention program to save lives if that person's warning sign is their first and only. It's going to be an incredible program, and I can't wait to introduce you to a very special mom, Renee Maler from California, and we'll introduce that with starting in tragedy with the story of her son Jordan. But just to remind you, this whole program and our time together was birthed out of the pandemic. Remember that thing called SARS-CoV-2 and the Delta variant and the Omicron variant, and the Omicron surge is coming down, yay. And but in the past 2 years worldwide, over 407 million cases of COVID-19 worldwide, 5.8 million deaths, each of those a precious life. In the United States, 77.5 million cases. We're approaching 1 million deaths, 916,440. Had the vaccine for quite some time now, over a year, about 15 months. And there have been over 10 billion doses of the vaccine administered worldwide, and over over a 500 million doses administered in the United States. I hope you all are the recipient of 1, 2, 3 of those doses, depending on what vaccine you got. I'm vaccinated, ×2, boosted, updated, so I'm vaccine up to date. I'm also an Omicron recovered individual, so hang out with me. I'm the safest person to be around. And in the meantime, when you need to, mask up. Yep, remember? Yeah, that's right there. SADS Foundation. Wear it when you need to. Please don't wear it outside. And have you seen the video circulating of those schools that have announced no more masks in the school, and the children are going crazy? I love those. Can't wait for it to happen in the preschool daycare of my 2-year-old granddaughter. Makes no sense to me, but what do I know? I'm just a genetic cardiologist. Speaking of my granddaughter and Valentine's Day weekend, let me show you something. Listen really carefully. See if I can get this to work. Listen. Hello, Jaden.
Hello, Papa.
Oh, who would have thought that those 2 words, hello, Grandpa, would be something that I play over and over since I saw her last weekend to celebrate her 2nd birthday. Well, life is full of celebrations, but life can also come to us with tragedies. And the story I'm about to bring to you, as we are in the Heart Month of February, and as we talk about SADS and prevention and awareness, oftentimes the reason we discuss it is because of tragedy, and the tragedy that came about for Renee Maler and her family is inexplicable when it occurs. And it's the story of her son Jordan, life cut short at 26 years of age. And so we are past the 2nd anniversary of Jordan's death, November 2019. And out of that tragedy has come a life-saving mission with Renee Maler's partnership with us at the SADS Foundation. And we're going to tell you that story. But first, Aaron's going to bring up the video to discuss Jordan and his life cut tragically short. So Aaron, would you play that for us?
Ain't no surprise that I can't sleep tonight. My only vice is standing by your side. So won't you love me better? I'm waiting here. I need you now. Gravity can't hold us down. So just take me there to higher ground. I'm holding on to you while soul is fading. I'm falling into blue, why don't you save me? My blood is running cold, so lift me up and give me higher ground. Would you give me shelter? I need you now. If you lead, I'll follow. I'm reaching out. So won't you love me better? I'm waiting here. I need you now. Gravity can't hold us down. So just take me there. So won't you love me better? I'm waiting here. I need you now. Gravity can't hold us down. So just take me there to higher ground. Save me. I'm holding on to you. My soul is fading. I'm falling into blue. Why don't you save me? My blood is running cold. So lift me up and give me higher ground.
And wow, what a life, so beautifully lived. And Renee, thanks for sharing this. And I bring up Renee Maler, Jordan's mom, and just seeing the dates. So rings a chord, strikes once for sure, because Jordan was born just 18 days after my oldest son, Jager, in April of 1993.
Oh, wow.
And so both of our sons, mine hopefully will be celebrating his 29th birthday, and your son would be. So, but as I watched that, I thought that was a life lived so very large for 26 years and so tragically taken away. And so, Renee, could you tell us a little bit about what happened to go from that to that tragic day? What claimed your son?
if I start from the very first time that he ever complained about anything, which was really what seemed to be test or public speaking anxieties, that started all the way back in middle school. So he felt faintish, he felt short of breath. It was very quickly attributed to some sort of anxiety from being in public. He had run for ASB president, so he was out there all the time presenting, and he'd never really done it. So he asked me to enroll him in a program at like the local Rotary Club to help his speaking. So he did that, and yet the symptoms didn't slow down. So we were in a really high achieving academic environment where he went to school. He got into a super, super highly achieving in high school, only 300 kids. So it was very visible on performance and all of that. And that's where I can tell you the anxiety peaked. And that's when the symptoms started to really amplify, and he started to talk about them more. It was primarily shortness of breath, rapid heartbeat, and then it culminated in like high blood pressure and things like that.
And so I assume, or maybe not, with those symptoms, because as you described them, shortness of breath and rapid heartbeat and things like that is not a symptom of long QT syndrome or some of the other genetic heart conditions that we focus on at SADS. So when they can be sometimes non-specific, were they brought to the attention of the healthcare provider world to be tested and evaluated? What was his first point of, or your first point of contact with the healthcare environment?
Right. Great question. We were very consistent on healthcare. He had the same pediatrician from birth all the way until middle school, I would assume, going into high school. And that's when we transitioned to a general practitioner. Stanford Medical Group, Palo Alto Medical Group, we had the best in the Bay Area. We could have taken him anywhere, but those seemed to be the best doctors. They were local. He confided in them. He even had times where he'd ask me to leave the room so that he could talk to the doctor on his own, because I think he had some sense of embarrassment, like he was creating it himself. And every time that he spoke with the doctor, they insisted that he take anxiety medication. No one ever tested. No one ever talked about testing. If I talked about testing, I was being like the, mom that was kind of overshadowing everything. And so I had to step back. But when the high blood pressure started, I think that should have been a pretty major indicator that something more needed to happen.
So you had interactions with sort of frontline healthcare providers. Did they ever route you, your son, or your concerns to a heart specialist so that a set of cardiac testing could be done?
Never once. Never once.
So then I imagine one of your concerns is going to be, if concerned, act on it, and if concerned, insist that it doesn't stop at a pediatrician, a family doctor's level of reassurance, that if you're not satisfied with the conclusion, get yourself to a heart specialist.
1,000%. Obviously, if I could do it over again, it'd be the first thing, and I would have insisted. If I did start to insist or push in that direction, I was pushed back on. Don't baby him. Don't treat him like he's not an adult, because he's going to go off to college soon and he needs to take care of these things on his own. And it's a 15-minute EKG for me when I went after I lost him, and then a stress test, a treadmill test, and less than an hour total, and I could have saved my son's life.
And if I may ask, what ultimately happened? What was the precipitating event? Did your son die in the morning or at night, or was he doing anything in particular?
He had left, graduated college and had entered the work world in Silicon Valley, which, where we lived, and I experienced that, as did my husband. And it's a very fast-paced environment. So a year in of working at Facebook, he started to talk about feeling, these are his exact words, I actually wrote them down, "I'm afraid I'm going to die suddenly. I'm worried I might have a heart attack." So he was feeling accelerated symptoms, and again, written off to, you're working high tech, you're doing things, commuting that you're not used to doing, you're probably not eating right. they had these micro kitchens at his work. And, he started to gravitate towards energy drinks and things like that. And then he realized that it was like revving things up. And so he would slow down. But he was talking to doctors. And after he told them those exact words, "I'm afraid I'm going to die suddenly," they suggested that he meditate. So I don't know what you could say to a doctor more clearly. "I'm afraid I'm going to die suddenly and have a heart attack."
And during this whole time, nobody has done an ECG, treadmill, echo, any heart studies on your son, or even letting a heart doctor decide whether it was nothing.
Right. Nothing at all ever recommended. So that started in 17, 18. I think he kind of found a middle ground with yoga and meditation. He was taking more time to do that. He used music, just as I do, as a way to really calm himself and to kind of transition out of anxious phases. And that's why he gravitated, and people saw him out all the time doing that. And we saw in the video that as well. He was in a fantastic group of friends always, and they always supported each other. So they just kept trying to like do the right things, give him his downtime, all of that. Ultimately, I think he was stressed. I definitely think that I don't know about the components there as much as you do. There were a lot of changes going on in our family. He had shifted his work to Pinterest, which he loved dearly, but he was taking on a dual role there. And it was a lot of pressure. And I was on my way to go see him. And I landed in San Francisco. I was going there to take him to a show that night. And my daughter called me while I was in the cab, screaming that his roommate had just found him on the floor in his bedroom. He'd been gone a day. Nobody knew because he worked from home on Wednesdays, but when he didn't show up to work on Thursday, his boss called.
Oh my
And
goodness.
that's when they went in and found him. And he was on the floor. He'd been gone about 24 hours. He died in his sleep. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Renee. And I imagine the search for answers continued even after his death. And was there an autopsy performed to try to find an explanation that the medical examiner could see with his or her eyes, or see after looking through a microscope?
I wish the answer was yes. He was at the coroner's office for 5 days in Oakland, California, where he lived, and nothing. But when the determination came back as sudden arrhythmic death, I've heard of SIDS. I hadn't heard of SADS. I certainly didn't know to say, "Oh my gosh, take a blood sample so we can, narrow this down and make sure that his sister and his dad and I are all tested properly," or whatever. I had no concept of that. And you're still in a pretty shocked phase. I said goodbye to my son while he was laying on a gurney, and the coroner was pressuring me to take him away.
Right.
So, you don't think about that stuff. But through my very quick research and getting recommended to you all from a Facebook group called Helping Parents Heal, and it's only for parents who have lost children, I got quickly connected, and they asked me those exact same questions. Was the blood saved? Were there tissue samples? All of that.
What's so disturbing to hear this, Renee, is I can accept this for a 1989, 1979 tragic story, but when we're talking of one that isn't just barely 2 years old, yet all of the things that you and I know to be so elementary now, that wasn't given to you and your family, it's just
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we see this all the time, and it's just so unacceptable. And even though we're making great progress, a story that's as recent as yours and your family's just tells us that the progress isn't happening fast enough, isn't happening uniform enough throughout the country and throughout the world, that there are some places that are unbelievably savvy in sudden death investigations with incredible, tenacious medical examiners searching for truth. And there's others where the symptoms are blown off. You're just anxious, no heart test, no nothing, no autopsy. And you hear it and you say, man, we have so much work to do yet, because this is entirely unacceptable.
Absolutely.
So you do connect with us at SADS. I imagine that you, Jordan's father, your daughter, you get tested Does a diagnosis ever emerge among the living, or are you still stuck with our tests are all normal and we still have no idea why our son died?
Um, I am the only one in our family who's chosen to test. So for whatever reason, and everybody has their own reasons for that. And so mine was negative, and that's all I know. And I told them, give me every test there is. I will stay here for 24 hours, whatever you need to do to narrow this down so that I know for my daughter,
Yeah.
what she needs to do. And unfortunately, I'm the only one.
Yeah. So unfortunately, you're sharing in real time with us, and I'm hearing your story for the first time in real time of just essentially if a family wants to be exposed to an example of all the wrong ways to
Yeah.
have the concerns addressed, the
Here we
symptoms not addressed, what not to do after our son dies, you're unfortunately the example and
Yeah.
the picture of all of the things done incorrectly, and it's
Yeah.
just heartbreaking. But you didn't let it end in heartbreak. I mean, out of the ashes, as they say, you chose to engage in a life-saving mission for your community and for your son's school district and school area. When did the conversion start, if you will, from a family where everything was done wrong to you and your family in terms of lack of testing, lack of listening to the concerns, to you then saying, not on my watch, we're going to do this differently going forward?
Believe it or not, the very next day,
Hmm.
because
Wow.
what we did after the coroner took him away was one of my best friends came to be with me and to take me to her house. And we spent the afternoon with his friends and his best friends. And we shared pictures and videos and music. And we were laughing and unbelievably laughing just at how silly he was at a time of extreme pain. But when she took me home and I slept on her couch, which I didn't sleep at all, I was on her couch, and the pain, I knew at that very moment I would never survive it in a million years. The pain was unlike anything I've ever felt in my life. And I've lost my mom, I've lost my dad, I've lost a brother. And it was searing pain that I could never live with. And I told myself that night, if you are going to be here for your daughter, you need to find a way to not deal with this pain in this way or live in this pain. So the very next day, I popped up and I said, I'm going to honor my son the best way I can. I'm going to celebrate his life. My friends thought I was crazy, I'm sure. I know my family did. But I did that. I really pushed to honor him and to share what I knew happened at that time. Of course, we didn't know it was SADS. So once we found out what it was and I connected with your organization, that just fueled me that much more. I will not let his life be lost without there being a purpose in this. And I've been guided by him too. I can honestly say that, but there has to be a reason for this. And so I refer to this as jumping to 6 because I went straight from stage 1 grief to finding meaning, which is now the 5th stage or 6th stage. Sorry, there were 5 stages. So finding meaning is every day of my life now. And we've already saved lives. We've had a 12-year-old, a mom of a 12-year-old. Her daughter was fainting during exercise. She was 12 and she took her to the doctor and the doctor said she's poorly hydrated. She's absolutely poorly hydrated, just increase her water intake. She took her home. She started experiencing more fainting. She took her back. They tested her, and she's got one of the syndromes, and she's on meds right now. That's one of 3. Yesterday, I had somebody call me and tell me that her son has been exhibiting symptoms, a friend from high school, for a year, and every doctor's telling him the same things they told me and told Jordan. And so she asked, can I please talk to a SADS approved doctor? And so we sent her the link and she's doing that now because she's absolutely convinced that he's got something just like that going on. His symptoms are identical. And then
you are a lifesaver, and I'm just curious that your program that you launched when you reached out to the SADS Foundation has become sort of the now prototype. It was the first official SADS prevention program. And so what does that prevention program consist of that led to that 12-year-old getting diagnosed. What did you put together? Because the you put together is really you.
Yeah.
You did it. So what did you create?
There's a lot of Jordan in here, I can tell you. Like
Mhm.
the video is guided by him and how he lived his life, which is exactly what you said. He lived every day to the fullest. He treated people with kindness. And he even wrote down when he was talking to that doctor as part of his notes that he wanted to be able to inspire people. So feeding off of his energy and my immense love for my son, the best thing I could do was to go straight into a school district that knew him. He was very visible in this very teeny tiny high school, but in a larger district, we convinced all 4 high schools to participate at the same time, which meant that we had the potential to reach 11,000 students and their families.
Wow.
And so it was particularly important to me to start there, not only because of his impact there, but because it's an incredibly high achieving area. Every school in that district, except for one, places academics above all else for various reasons. Of course, they want the kids to get into great schools or whatever, but not to the detriment of anybody's health, right? So by amplifying it in that way in that district, the parents just came flooding in. Like they were like, my kid talks to me about this all the time, you know? So it was the absolute best thing to do. And the next step will be middle school. And if it makes sense to, we'll do grade school. Middle school, I have friends who've lost kids on the playground. There was no AED or whatever happened.
And
The big
what are the critical building blocks, Renee, of it? I mean, I'm assuming that in the high school program, you put out the SADS warning signs of symptoms to not blow off.
right,
Could it be a SADS condition?
right,
Check it out, tell somebody.
right.
And for you, what have been those warning signs that you are having repeated and displayed as reflexes there in that school district?
The same ones that Jordan talked about. Shortness of breath, feeling faint, rapid heartbeat. It's always rapid heartbeat, rapid heartbeat, rapid heartbeat.
Yeah, that's always those, sometimes as we've discussed before, those are challenging because like rapid heartbeat, for example, for those families out there who that your SADS condition is called long QT syndrome.
Mhm,
Rapid heartbeat is not a symptom.
mhm.
Shortness of breath is not a symptom of long QT or CPVT. It is potentially a symptom of a different heart muscle condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Right.
Could it be HCM? In fact, there's a campaign about could it be HCM? Check it out type thing. But I think that's all part of the point is some of the more specific or predictive warning signs is have you ever fainted suddenly, unexpectedly, without much warning, not dizzy, lightheaded, woozy, but down and out for the count during exertion or after somebody startled you?
Mhm.
That's a much more concerning warning sign that must be vetted by a heart specialist. It's not acceptable to be reassured
Mhm.
by a family physician about that kind of warning sign. Your son's, as I'm hearing his, it's almost for sure your son did not die from long QT or CPVT, but he still had warnings that to him nobody was listening to, and nobody gave it the modicum of respect to say, I don't think it's anything, but I have got to get you to a heart doctor to let that heart specialist decide whether those concerns warrant further testing.
Absolutely. And to have his mom say, I'm very concerned he has a heart condition and there's more going on here. And then for
Yeah.
that to be dismissed.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never said in my life, I think I'm going to die suddenly until after losing him, maybe, but definitely
Right.
looking forward to a doctor, right?
So besides telling the school and having the students have awareness of warning signs to not keep to yourself, but to tell people about to see if they should be tested, are there other elements of the SADS prevention program that you have established?
Right. There are, and the way that we did, the easiest way for me to explain it is to talk about the steps that we took. So picking a known school that you're connected to, because they're quicker to jump in and get it approved, because it does have to go through district-wide approval. We work directly with the PTSA. So you're working with parents of kids who are listening to this story. And of course, they're going to want to amplify it, not only in protection of their kids, but the rest of the kids that they know. That opened the doors. The steps I took after that were to write the promotional pieces for them and to make it easy to provide all the SADS resources that you guys have. I created the video because the video showed how he lived his life, and he was a kid. He was just like everybody else's kid, you know, from the perspective of how he lived. And that's when all those messages came flooding in during that presentation. Like, this really brought it home for us. We amplified it through the district itself. I reached out to local media. So like all the local patch, I don't know if you guys have patch where you are, but in California and other places, they have local newsletters for each city. They took it and they published, and then local city council took it and published that it was happening. And so it got amplified that way. I would say the strongest thing you could do too is social media. Just of the people that are on this call right now, I know that many of them are here because of our amplification on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and just posting stories and having friends refer friends and say, oh my gosh, could this be what happened to my kid?
Right.
So that was the hugest piece.
Well, it's been incredible what you've done, and we couldn't, I mean, it's so exciting to know that now we're 2 years into the SADS prevention program. And so for any family out there who says, you know what, we want to take up the mantle as well in our community and have increased awareness about warning signs, whether they can be quickly blown off and dismissed, or whether they better be put in the penalty box until those warnings have been carefully vetted.
Right.
What should they do next? Let's say there's somebody out there that says, I want to be the next Renee Maler and to do this. And in fact, I want to start doing it, and I don't even have a tragedy to be my own personal launch pad. What do they do?
I am more than happy, and we've just started discussing this with your team. I'm going to create like a little toolkit that would have, you know, templates for people to use, and make myself available to give any guidance I can. But my goal is to give it over to SADS and to really train and share what we've done and what's worked. And I'm still doing it. When I do it at the college level, it's going to have to shift. I think for every level that you do it with, you're going to have to make some messaging and some other modes of communication shifts. Like the college level, I want this to be in every health center on a college campus, and I'm going to start at Cal Poly. That's already in the works. That's where he graduated. That's where my family all graduated from. And it's going to be something that people share. We're doing a local music festival in San Luis Obispo where they're going to amplify it there. Where else better to reach kids his exact age, you know, going through. So
Right.
Find those types of events that map to your kids' ages.
Right. And you know, you can go to the website at www.sads.org /awareness /SADS -prevention-program. You'll find it. You'll also find, if you go to the SADS website, the donate button, top right corner, red for Valentine's Day, donate now. So if you are so inclined and you want to partner financially with the mission, because the mission is a worthy one. It's life-saving, it's life-giving, and we know what we are doing. We know what we need to do. I can't wait until I stop hearing these stories that honestly make my blood boil, of seeing how we did not serve your family well, meaning we, the medical establishment, your portal of entry did not relay what should have been relayed, so that it's a heart doctor. If it ends up on me, where I tell you it's not the heart, it's anxiety, or it's not the heart, get used to it, then so be it. But it is not acceptable to be told the heart's not to blame, and have the person telling you or reassuring you the heart's not to blame, and that person's not even a heart specialist. We have to act on warning signs. We have to respect them. Some of them, many of the symptoms can be easily dismissed and easily provide reassurance without coming to me, without coming to our community of cardiologists. But there are times when a story like yours sort of says, no, we can't be having this happen on our watch anymore. This was not one that could have, should have been reassured without having the heart doctor provide that level of reassurance. So we're left not even knowing what is your son's explanation for his tragic sudden death. Which SADS condition is it? Almost for sure it's not long QT syndrome. His story doesn't fit, but which one is it?
Right.
And then leaving you and your daughter and Jordan's dad still in the unknown of, was it even genetic? Maybe it wasn't even genetic. So to not even know whether there is or isn't something genetically lurking around, again, I would be okay if this story was one of my 1999 stories, but not a 2019 story. So we have much to do, and I'm just so grateful, Renee, that you went so quickly from stage 1 to stage 6 and said, I will continue to celebrate my son's life. And so I'm thankful for you. I sure wish I would have had the privilege of being Jordan's doctor.
Me too.
But I'm so glad we have you on our team now. I wish we had you on our team in a different way, because the symptoms were respected, the evaluation proceeded, the diagnosis was made, treatments were rendered, and your son would be celebrating his 29th birthday in April, just like my son will be, Lord willing, celebrating his. So this does bring us to the top of the hour. So Renee, thank you. And for all of those who joined us at the SADS program for number 84, it's time to act. It's time to do more, and we'll do it together. I know I'm inspired today to try to do even more. And so in terms of more, we're going to take more of your questions in 2 weeks. So we're going to be back together February 25, and the entire time is going to be your questions, which are amazing, and my attempt to answer them well. So until then, be well. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. Know that you are very much loved. Take care.